In the twilight of 1945, as the cataclysmic tremors of World War II began to wane, a chapter of unparalleled horror unfolded on the remote Remree Island. What was meant to be a strategic retreat through the island's swampy labyrinth morphed into a nightmarish ordeal, etching the Battle of Remree Island into history with blood and terror. In the early days of 1945, the world was still engulfed in the throes of World War II. In the Southeast Asian theater, a critical battle was about to unfold on the strategically significant Remree Island. Located off the coast of Burma, a pivotal stronghold crucial for establishing airfields to sustain the mainland offensive. The island's significance drew the battle lines for a relentless confrontation between the 71st Infantry Division and entrenched Japanese forces. Over 32 days of brutal combat, the landscape of Remree was transformed into a battleground, culminating in a harrowing conclusion that decimated the Japanese troops by an unseen, ferocious adversary. On the chilly morning of January 21st, 1945, the first light of dawn cast a pale glow over Remree Island, heralding the commencement of Operation Matador. The operation, a meticulously planned amphibious assault, was a critical pivot in the Allies' strategy to reclaim Burma from Japanese control. The strategic port of Kyaukpu and the nearby airfield were the operation's primary objectives, critical for establishing a foothold in the region. The invasion force, a formidable amalgam of determination and military prowess, was commanded by a trio of seasoned leaders: Captain Bush R.N., Major General Cyril Lomax, and Wing Commander H. Smith. Each bore the weight of the mission with stoic resolve, their faces reflecting the gravity of the task at hand. As the Allied forces approached, intelligence reports painted a daunting picture. The Japanese had strategically fortified their positions, placing heavy artillery in the caves that overlooked the landing beaches. This formidable defensive was met with a robust response from the Royal Navy, showcasing its naval might. The fleet, including the imposing battleship HMS Queen Elizabeth, the escort carrier HMS Samir, and the light cruiser HMS Phoebe, leading a squadron of destroyers, positioned themselves ominously off the coast. Above, the skies reverberated with the roar of Allied aircraft. Squadrons of consolidated B-24 Liberators, North American B-25 Mitchells, and Republic P-47 Thunderbolts from the 224th Group Royal Air Force flew in formation, unleashing a relentless bombardment on the beaches. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and the sound of explosions as the aircraft strafed and bombed the enemy positions, softening them up for the impending ground assault. The ground invasion was preceded by a thunderous barrage. HMS Queen Elizabeth, the centerpiece of the naval fleet, unleashed its full might, firing a salvo of 69 15-inch rounds, the shells screaming through the air before finding their targets, sending plumes of smoke and debris skyward. This display of raw power served both as a demoralizer to the enemy and a morale booster to the incoming troops. Despite the overwhelming firepower, the landing was not without its challenges. A mortar launch and a landing craft struck mines in the water, causing minor setbacks. Nevertheless, by 9:42 a.m., the assault troops landed unopposed on the beaches west of Kyaukpu. They quickly established a beachhead, their boots sinking into the soft sand as they secured their position and prepared to advance inland. In the following days, the Allied forces demonstrated relentless tenacity. Pushing forward, the 4th Indian Infantry Brigade landed, bolstering the beachhead and taking control of Kyaukpu. On January 23rd, the momentum shifted as the 71st Infantry Brigade faced stiff resistance at Yanokchung. The Japanese defenders, entrenched and determined, offered fierce opposition. In a strategic maneuver, the 71st Brigade was redirected inland northeast toward Seine, and then south toward Remree town, circumventing the Japanese stronghold. The advance was grueling, marked by intense firefights and challenging terrain. The British forces, utilizing their superior tactics and firepower, began outflanking the Japanese positions. This relentless pressure forced the Japanese defenders to abandon their fortified positions and embark on a treacherous march across the island, a decision that would lead them into the unforgiving embrace of the mangrove swamps. By February 7th, supported by tanks, the 71st Infantry Brigade had reached the outskirts of Remree town. The Japanese, cornered and fighting with a ferocity born out of desperation, mounted a tenacious defense. However, the arrival of the 4th Indian Infantry Brigade provided a much-needed reinforcement for the Allied forces. The town of Remree, after days of intense urban combat, finally fell on February 9th, marking a significant victory for the Allied forces. As the British Navy and the 26th Indian Infantry Division focused on securing the East Coast to prevent any Japanese escape, the battle for Remree Island reached its climax. A Japanese air raid on February 11th inflicted damage, but failed to break the blockade's resolve. The resistance of the Japanese forces on Remree Island was finally crushed on February 17th. On February 19th, the remaining Japanese forces, now facing the inevitable reality of defeat, were confronted with a dire choice. With the Allied forces tightening their grip, approximately 1,000 Japanese soldiers found themselves at a critical juncture: continue to resist against overwhelming odds, or attempt a perilous retreat through the island's daunting mangrove swamps. The decision to retreat was born out of desperation. The Japanese command, realizing the futility of further combat and the impossibility of reinforcement or resupply, opted for the lesser-known dangers of the swamp over the certainty of defeat by the Allies. This choice, while a tactical necessity, was fraught with peril, as the swamps of Remree were an environment as hostile as any enemy. The retreat began under the cover of darkness, a strategic move to avoid detection by the Allied forces. The Japanese troops, burdened with whatever equipment they could carry, embarked on their treacherous journey through the swamp. On the fateful moonless night of February 19th, 1945, the dark canvas of the sky blanketed the mangrove swamps in a suffocating gloom. The Japanese forces, beleaguered and fatigued from relentless combat, cautiously navigated the labyrinth-like swamps. Their senses heightened in the oppressive darkness, they moved with trepidation, aware that each step could be their last. The swamp, an alien and forbidding environment, hummed with the sound of nocturnal creatures, adding to the surreal atmosphere. The Japanese soldiers, their faces strained in the dim light, were acutely aware of the peril that surrounded them. Every rustle in the underbrush, every splash in the murky waters, heightened the palpable tension. Suddenly, the eerie quiet was shattered. Gunfire erupted sporadically, its flashes momentarily illuminating the chaotic scene. Screams of terror and pain pierced the night as the hidden predators of the swamp, the saltwater crocodiles, launched their merciless attack. These creatures, drawn by the turmoil and scent of blood, became the arbiters of fate in this unforeseen battlefield. The Japanese troops, armed and trained for human adversaries, found themselves ill-equipped to combat these primal forces of nature. Each soldier's battle became a desperate struggle for survival against an enemy they could neither anticipate nor understand. The murky waters turned into a terrifying hunting ground, with crocodiles striking swiftly and disappearing back into the depths with their prey. The night seemed to stretch into eternity, with the sounds of battle interspersed with the horrifying thrashes and spins of the crocodiles. Men, gripped by primal fear, fought for their lives, not against an armed enemy, but against a silent, relentless predator that had ruled these waters for millennia. As dawn slowly broke, the swamp's gruesome tableau was revealed in the pale morning light. Bodies, some whole, others horrifically mutilated, lay scattered amidst the tangled roots and muddy waters. The survivors, traumatized and in shock, bore witness to the aftermath of a massacre. They gazed upon the scene with a mixture of disbelief and horror, the events of the night etched into their memories. Now eerily silent, the swamp held within its waters the secrets of that night. The surviving Japanese soldiers, those few who managed to escape the jaws of crocodiles, stumbled out of the mangrove as broken men. They had faced an enemy unlike any other, a reminder of the indiscriminate and savage nature of war, where human conflict and the raw ferocity of the natural world collide in a terrifying maelstrom of violence and survival. Approximately 1,000 Japanese soldiers had entered these swamps in a desperate bid for survival. By morning, the landscape told a story of unprecedented slaughter. Only about 20 haunted survivors emerged from the depths of this natural abyss. The Battle of Remree Island, particularly this night of terror, would be recorded in history, not just as a military engagement, but as a stark reminder of the mercilessness of war and the unforgiving power of nature. This harrowing episode, where 1,000 soldiers entered the abyss of the swamp, with only a score emerging, would be remembered as one of the most chilling incidents of World War II, a haunting testament to the unpredictability and cruelty of conflict in the face of nature's untamed might.